We have 13 guests here tonight, setting something of a new indoor record for this program. Hello, I'm Bart Frito. The guests are candidates in the election for the Board of Education in the 3 Oahu districts. That's Honolulu, Leeward, and Windward. All voters on Oahu, regardless of where you live, will be able to vote for one candidate in each of these 3 districts. Next week, the Oahu at Large and the neighbor island candidates will be here. But tonight, it's just the candidates in the 3 Honolulu districts. First, we'll be talking with the 6 candidates in the Honolulu district, and they are Donald Cook, Joe Shorba, Daryl Breda, Brian Almodovar, Denise Matsumoto, and Mike Matsuda. Our interpreter for the hearing impaired tonight is Debbie Jackson. Now, if you have a question or a comment that you'd like to direct to the candidates, just call the number shown on the screen during the program, 955-7878. We do ask that you keep your candidates, yes, you keep your questions generic, because by the time a particular question for a particular candidate that gets up to me, the candidate might be off the set, because we are going to be playing musical chairs tonight. These candidates will be up here for about 25 minutes. Now, but while I'm waiting for our first question, Mr. Cook, I will address this question to you, and I'd like each of you in turn to respond, please, and briefly. What specific problem or deficiency in the public school system will you address if elected?
The major problem I plan to be addressing, that I believe, is that every child has the right and deserves to have the best education possible. Too many of the parents feel they have to send their children to private schools to get a proper education. So increasing the abilities with which we have, taking the advantages of what we have to give our present-day school system children the best education possible is the main point I'm going to be addressing.
Mr. Shorba?
I'd like to be addressing the problem of parental involvement in the schools, more grassroots involvement in the schools. I'd like to stress academic freedom. I don't believe we have academic freedom in the schools today as it should be. I would like to see more attention to the alienated students who are not getting proper attention, and they're the ones that are bringing down the SAT scores. If we can get them back into the mainstream of education, the scores will go up.
Mr. Breda, what specific deficiency or problem do you see in the system, and what would you do about it?
I think that one of the most important things that we have to start doing is to identify students early. Those that are gifted and talented should be identified in the kindergarten and first grade and put into special programs, because we know that those students often deteriorate as they go along, or their learning ability deteriorates as they go along. We also need to recognize those students who are going to be potential problem students, who will have reading problems, who have speech problems, and they need to be identified early and gotten into programs. Currently, I think they're picked up now about in the 3rd grade, and by that time, the damage is done, and they can't ever gain back their place where they should be.
Mr. Almodovar, specific problem you'd like to tackle?
My specific problem, I guess I want to tackle, is communication skills. For #1 elementary school level, we have to improve the reading program. Reading, writing, just simple things that people need to know in life. If we're going to improve our library system and whatnot, if the kids can't read, our library system can't get started anyway. So the #1 thing I think is reading, going back to phonics, going back to things that people want to read, make reading enjoyable. So when we do get older, we do have some kind of base or foundation for these kids to, and give us, or I should say educators, a chance to finally teach. If the kid can't read, there is no way education can move on. So we got to make it enjoyable.
Ms. Matsumoto?
That also is my major concern, is the reading. And I'd like to see a good across-the-board phonics program put into the schools. I feel that we need to get back to basics in the early years and stress the basic skills so that we have something to build on later on in the schooling of the kids. And also with the vocational education, I'd like to see more done to provide the children with the skills that they need to join the workforce and for college.
I'm sorry, excuse me, Mr. Matsuda.
As a board member, and I've always advocated vocational education, and primarily because I am a businessman. I used to be in the body and fender business, and there are a lot to be said or to be gained in vocational education. We need to work on that because Dale Parnell, in his book, The Neglected Majority, says there are so many of our students that are not going to college, and we need to address the vocational education aspect of it. So my charge has been in the past and in the future to improve our vocational education.
Okay. There was just an article in the Morning Advertiser today about a plan by Superintendent Charles Noguchi. He would like to see schools, individual schools, given a report card, if you will, rated, much as a student is given a report card. What do you think about that idea? Apparently there are members of the board who don't think it's a good idea. What do you think?
In the concept, I've agreed to it. I voted for as a board member, voted for the school report card. There are certain things that I like to look at before it's implemented, and that's about it.
I feel that is an excellent idea. I'm for more accountability from the Department of Education and the Board of Education to the parents, and I think this is one way to do it, and I think it should be public knowledge what the grade of the school is.
Mr. Almodovar.
I feel strongly about grading the school, but then again, like Mr. Matsuda said, before it's implemented, it's got to be researched a little more, because during that time of evaluation, the school may pick it up and to show that they may grade out for that week an A. So is that 1 week going to answer the question for the whole year? Are the kids getting the proper education?
Mr. Breda.
I think it's an excellent idea. I know that there's some principals that are quite concerned about it, but we are supposed to, in this state, be giving equal opportunity for every student. And yet I hear some board members say that some schools are better than others, and I'd like to know why. But I also feel like that somebody from the district office and the state office should visit schools once in a while and see just what is going on. I don't believe just calling principals in and questioning them and looking at a few records that they've kept is going to be adequate to do the job.
Mr. Shorba.
Well, I just saw that article in this morning's paper myself, so I can't really comment too much on it until I see more about what the details are. But I believe the schools should be held accountable in some way, and I don't know how they're going to do that, but I'd like to see more details before I make any judgment.
Okay, and Mr. Cook?
Yes, I feel all public sector employees should be held accountable, because when you're in civil service, you should be doing your best and providing the service to the community. As far as the accountability to the schools themselves, I feel that it's a good start. But the major thing is communication itself, from not only just from the public and from within the DOE, but also with the board and from the teachers and the community.
Okay. First viewer question, I'll start with you, Mr. Breda. Viewer wants, and I'll ask the same question of you all, and it can be answered briefly. Do you have school-age children, or did you have school-age children, and did they go to public school?
My brothers and sisters and nieces and nephews have all gone to public school. I unfortunately have no children, but people have been generous to share their kids with me for the past 36 years as a school teacher.
Okay. I'll go to the other side. Let's say Mr. Almodovar.
I guess I don't have any kids, but going back to my aunties and whatnot, through the Hawaii system, they've been principals and school teachers.
You went to...
I went to a public school. I mean, I went to a private school my elementary school years, but I had a chance to go to public school.
Okay.
I don't regret anything about it.
Okay. We'll go to Mr. Cook.
Yes, I do have 2 children, one in 1st grade and one in 3rd grade, right over here at Hokulani in a public school. And I was a product of public school myself, and that's one of the major reasons I'm so concerned about what my children are learning.
Okay. Mr. Matsuda.
Yes, I have 3 sons. All have attended public schools.
Okay. Mr. Shorba.
I myself am a product of public schools, and my children went to public school and to private school. One of the reasons why we took them out of the public schools because they weren't teaching the traditional values and family values that we wanted instilled in the education.
And finally, Ms. Matsumoto.
I'm a product of the public schools. I don't have children yet, but I'd like to be able to send my children to public schools.
Okay. Another viewer question, and I'll start it off with you. What do you think about the use of Pidgin English in the public school system?
I believe that modeled correct English is important. They should be able to be speaking the Pidgin on their free time, but they need to learn correct English so that when they go on to college or when they deal with people in the workforce that aren't familiar with Pidgin, they need to be able to communicate.
So you're saying to discourage the use of Pidgin in the classroom itself?
Right.
Okay. Mr. Shorba, let's start with you on this side.
Well, I believe it has a place in society, but not in school. I mean, if you're going to teach English the proper way, it should be taught the proper way in school. Pidgin is something they can pick up anywhere, and they will pick it up. And there's a place for it among your friends, in the neighborhood, and when you're partying or talking story or whatever. But I don't think it should be part of the school curriculum.
Mr. Matsuda.
As a board member, I voted for standard English in the schools, and I do not encourage Pidgin English in the classroom. Pidgin English does not set a good precedent when a student graduates from school and goes into the job market. If they cannot speak standard English, they'll be handicapped. This is my whole thing.
Okay. Mr. Cook.
Yes, Pidgin English has its place in society here in the islands. It's necessary, but this is a standard English-speaking world we live in, and thus we must encourage its use as much as possible, but not necessarily discourage the use of the Pidgin English. In the classroom, should be our standard English.
Okay. Mr. Almodovar.
I feel the same way with everyone else. We should continue the standard English. Pidgin English will always be around.
Okay.
Don't worry about that.
And finally, Mr. Brader.
Well, I spoke Pidgin English up in most of my life, and I guess I still do once in a while. I know it is a great handicap. I don't think the board's action was enough. It was rather ludicrous to say we were going to speak English in the classroom and then not give any means by which to teach the children to speak proper English. Also, I think the university should not graduate teachers unless they've gone through a speech program so that when they get into the schools that they can speak properly.
Okay. Have I left out anybody on this this question? I'm sorry, I'm losing track.
Pretty much the same.
Have you all gotten a shot at that? Okay. If not, I will proceed. Another viewer question, and this is a very basic. Try to keep your answers brief. I'll start with you, Mr. Shorba. Let's start with you. What is your background and experience? Viewer wants to know. To run for office, Board of Education.
Well, I was a teacher for 10 years myself. I've been a guidance counselor now for 14 years. I have 2 master's degrees, one in early childhood education, which I believe should begin at least 3 years old, and I have a master's in counseling and education from USC.
Okay. Mr. Matsuda.
I'm not an educator, I'm a businessman. And I think I bring a different perspective on the Board of Education from a business viewpoint and not an educational viewpoint.
Okay. Mr. Brader.
I have a master's degree in school administration and a bachelor's degree in junior high school English, junior high school, and have a certificate in elementary and high school. I've taught 5th through the 12th grade and started many programs in the public school, such as special ed and special motivation programs. And I have taught school for 36 years.
In this state.
31 in this state, 5 in the mainland.
Mr. Almodovar.
I've been teaching for going on my 5th year right now, and the bottom line is I just care about kids. I want to see kids be on the right end of the stick. I'm tired of them seeing them